Today I'm going to show you this incredible glitch that I came across while playing F1 26 the other week, and it's actually been able to drive completely manually in the pit lane, which if you play a lot of the F1 games, you will know this is something you can't do. So let's take a look at how this happened, but before we begin, make sure to subscribe to see more F1 content like you're watching. During this 100% Monaco race with Fernando Alonso, I was running P5, as you do in the Aston Martin. The safety car was deployed, so Hajar and I, along with the rest of the field, headed straight into the pits, as this was the perfect time for us to stop as well because it was near our pit window. I was trying to get as close to Isaac as possible to potentially gain trap position in the pit stop, but as we entered the pit lane, I slowed down to the pit entry speed and let go of the wheel, because at this point the game normally takes over and you need to start preparing to press that turn in button for your pit box. But that didn't happen because you could see how quickly I realised something was off, because my car was heading straight towards the wall. So I grabbed the wheel again, and that's when I noticed I had full steering control in the pit lane. It felt so weird, but it felt so right at the same time. And this wasn't even the best part, because I also realised I could accelerate and brake, so naturally I stopped in the middle of the pit lane, and the game just seemed to allow it, not even teleport me back onto the circuit, which is something it would normally do if you're starting to break the game. What I found next was absolutely hilarious, because Hajar's AI must have recognised there was a car sitting right beside his pit box, so his team deliberately held him even though I wasn't a threat and I wasn't even moving. And the second I crept forward, however, they did release him. I then proceeded to park outside the Ferrari garage to see if I could stop other cars from leaving their pit boxes, but that didn't seem to work, and at this point I didn't want to drive any further because I was worried at this very moment in time when I crossed my pit box turn-in, the game would take full control and I would lose manual driving. So I made the most of it and I did a mid-session save, just in case I have to go back to it. I took the risk and sure enough the game took over and performed the normal pit stop procedure, but you wouldn't believe what happened next. As I left my pit box, I suddenly had full control again, and at this point I wanted to make sure I made the absolute most of this glitch, because I might never get the chance to have something like this ever again, and it also meant I could try things that we all want to do in the F1 game. So the first thing I did was reverse all the way back to the start of the pit lane so I could explore the garages, and as Fernando Alonso, I thought it'd be only right to pay a visit to one of his former teams, which was McLaren. I also found it quite funny that every team had a handful of crew members just sitting there watching the race without moving, but don't get me wrong, it still looks great, but could you just imagine if they had their own animation 24/7, like the team moving back and forward throughout the race rather than just being frozen the whole time, you know, doing the mannequin challenge. When I reached the Aston Martin garage, I had a bit of a brainwave, and that's when I decided to try something you've never been able to do in the F1 game, and that's reverse back into your own garage. So I gave it a go, and honestly I would have to say I absolutely nailed it, and it was all fun and games up until the game said no, and obviously it teleported me back onto the circuit. So at this point I did think the fun was over, but I did go back onto the replay to see how this looked from the TV cameras, and I will say it is a very bizarre sight to see something like this in an F1 game, but at the same time it feels so refreshing. After all that, I did use my flashback and regain control again, but for some reason my team completely started freaking out, constantly running out the garage before instantly teleporting back inside, and I even took the opportunity to park inside the garage, something that Aston this season have been used to doing. I got instant karma for that one, by the way. Don't worry. Now, the reason I say I got instant karma for this joke was because when I started using flashbacks once again, I just kept getting teleported back onto the circuit. So, karma is I think you guys know what I mean, but we keep it family friendly on this channel. So at this point you think our fun would be over, but we're only just getting started, because thanks to this mid-session save I was able to do it all over again, and this time I really did make the most of it, and I decided to recreate a proper pit lane battle with Hajar using my limited manual control to see how it would play out, and well, I'll let you watch for yourself. Of course it wasn't perfect, but look, even a crash at the end of the pit lane because there was simply not enough room and I refused to back out. When I was racing out the pit lane, I was sort of remembering a little bit of the old content I used to do on the channel back in 2021, and like if you guys were watching around then, I would do this series where I would see how many cars could fit out or maybe even in East Track's pit lane. I know we're 5 years late, but in old school fashion, if you guys wanted to know if you could actually fit 2 F1 cars out of the Monaco pit lane, well, here's your answer. After this I decided to cause caused complete and utter chaos by blocking everyone that entered the pits during the safety car, which resulted in nearly the entire field getting disqualified. So you can kind of see why Codemasters don't want us to have this control in the pit lane, but I mean, we're not always going to do this, right? Like, who's going to get bored and, you know, just suddenly block everyone in the pits or crash into people, you know? Not me. I mean, I don't think I'd be doing that type of thing. Nah, but in all seriousness, like, it would be still cool to see a lot more control in the pit lane because, like, I know it's not perfect at the moment, but even to see cars side by side in the pit lane after leaving the pit box, it's still better than ghosting through cars, you know? So let's hope in F1 27 we see something a lot better than what we currently have. Back to the glitch now, and just when you think we're done, there was one final thing I discovered. I could drive through the pit lane with the pit limiter completely off, yet we've travelled about 30 years back in time to when Formula 1 cars could just drive through the pit lane as quickly as they want. Now what I will say is I was a little limited before reaching my pit box because I could only wheel spin the entire way, which was quite funny because I was just weaving left to right constantly. But after the pit stop, that's when things got quite interesting, because if you take a look here, it's the funniest thing you're probably going to see in an F1 game. Just look at Hajaz on board. Look at the speed that I'm taking at the pits. Like, imagine seeing this now. Imagine F1 cars in the pit lane don't have speed limits. Yeah, I could imagine quite a few big crashes and quite a few scary ones as well, but I won't go into that. And can we just ignore the fact that I almost completely binned it on the very first attempt at disabling the pit limiter? I mean, I can't lie, it was ridiculous fun and it did catch me off guard, so yeah, we nearly ended up in some team's garage there, but you know, we move. But apart from that, this is probably one of the most funnest experiences I've had recently in the F1 game, and it's sad because, like, it's probably the closest we're going to get to see this much control in the pit lane up, you know, until maybe F1 27, or who knows, it maybe even be later. But hopefully F1 27 marks the start of something new, and maybe we'll finally get a little bit more freedom in the pit lane, even if it's not quite everything we've been asking for. Like I've said many times before in my videos, I'll keep trying to push EA with ideas from both myself and the F1 game community, but the best thing we could do is try, and what will be will be. But until then, thank you all so much for watching this video. Let me know what you think of this glitch in the comments below, and if you've had anything similar to what I've had. Subscribe to the channel to see more F1 content like you've watched, and I'll see you all very soon.